Good evening, fellow heretics. Welcome to another episode of the Thunderdome, or Nerds and Heresy. I mean, the Thunderdome. Because tonight we're doing something a little bit different. We have a debate between two theists, theists that we are all pretty much a big fan of, Eddie and Brad. And they are two very educated, two very opinionated Christians who want to hash things out a little bit. I like to call them titans of theology, experts of eschatology. Nate, this one doesn't make sense.
Well, you wrote them, so if you can't make sense,
did you
hit your head too hard when you tried that backflip?
You sent me. I would not rank. I would not write down orangutans of ontology. That's not something I would write down.
Yeah, I didn't write that either.
That's you. Okay,
were you drugged up?
Well, then we have some investigation to do. Maybe we should do an internal investigation into our staff.
Yeah, boy.
But nevertheless. Well, then we have some investigation. So how's everybody doing
watching
tonight?
it? Who's watching their own?
Pretty good.
Right now.
Doing well.
I'm just trying to stream it.
Oh, Eddie.
To stream it. Oh.
Of course, Eddie's gonna screw something up.
Dumpster fire already.
Sorry,
Eddie already with the dumpster fire.
Yeah, Eddie already. That's his name.
It was
How about you, Nate? How you doing tonight?
Good. There was some block party or something going on outside my house. I took a nap, woke up to "Sweet Child of Mine" by a cover band, and the guy trying to scream at the end. It was fantastic.
So I would say that doesn't sound like too bad a way to wake up.
Well, when the cover band stinks.
Oh yeah, it really is hit or miss with cover bands.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're making money to do that too.
Yeah, they had to have gotten paid. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they paid them in food. I don't know.
They'd have to come out and perform publicly when they're that bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're definitely getting something out of it.
Mm-hmm. I don't know what it is. I didn't even get close enough to find out. So. All
right, so here's how this is going to work. We're going to do 2 opening 10-minute segments. Brad is taking the affirmative. By the way, the topic is I've been struggling with how to word this. The importance of Old Testament doctrine to today's Christianity, or something to that effect. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that's pretty close. I typically phrase it the validity of the Torah for a modern believer.
There we go. That's even better. Way better. I should have asked you first before I embarrassed myself like that.
You're good, man.
So Brad's going to be taking the affirmative. They're each going to get they're each going to get a 10-minute introductory statement, and then Nate and I are going to pop up and give a little evaluation, and then there's going to be a cross-examination period with 5 minutes each, and then they're going to do closing statements, and then we're going to have open discussion / Q&A for you guys in the comments. So, gentlemen, are you ready to get started? All right, let's get Brad up here.
So excited. It's so exciting in here now.
Woo. Feel the energy.
Feel it. Feel the burn, right?
Yeah.
Uh-oh. We good? Is this it? Am I going?
No, hang on. We're trying to get you. Not me.
I'm not trying to make it you.
Hi, everybody.
All right. Well, first and foremost, I definitely want to say thanks to everybody who's involved. Eddie, grateful that you agreed to this. I think this is going to be an awesome conversation. Definitely thanks to Captain Dadpool for hosting. Thanks to Nate for being here. I think we're all going to have a really great conversation, actually. But to kind of segue into the bulk of my opening statement here, this topic, I don't think is going to be one that Eddie and I find a whole lot of disagreement on. As I understand, Eddie himself is kind of going through an evolution of theology on this subject, and we may actually end up agreeing more than we disagree, but I think it'll be an awesome conversation regardless. But kind of to describe and frame how this debate usually goes. If you ever Google this topic, or if you ever witness this topic being debated, typically what happens is somebody, typically the person making the affirmative statement, will begin with Matthew chapter 5, verses 17 through 20 specifically. Now, this passage is where the bulk of discussion should actually stay. The primary setting of discussion should be in this passage, but it almost never stays in this passage for any length of time. It moves on from Matthew 5:17 relatively quickly, and what ends up happening is the person making the affirmative statement ends up having to chase their opponent through all of Paul's letters, basically. This, I think, presents a couple of problems, four namely, and that's that it presents as though there's a contradiction between Paul and Jesus, which I do not believe to be the case at all. And so I see an inherent problem with presenting a contradiction between Paul and Jesus, because I don't believe that the Bible has, at least not contradictions that are face value. There are certain points that I could agree probably appear as contradictions, but upon further investigation, I think would resolve themselves. Now, the second problem is that it actually elevates Paul's words above that of Jesus. It presumes that Paul has the authority to redact or abrogate what Jesus has said. Because the idea is that the person making the affirmative statement is saying, look, Jesus agrees with my position here. And the person who's arguing with them does not disprove what Jesus said. They just respond with something that Paul said, as though that negates what Jesus said. So that would be a way of elevating Paul's words above Jesus. Now, I take the opposite approach, and a lot of Christians may have a problem with this. I think that obviously the words of Jesus should be what is given more precedence. Now, those who disagree with me would say, well, you can't elevate Jesus' words above Paul's either, because, all scripture is God-breathed. So they would disagree with the idea of elevating anybody's words above somebody else's words that are in the Bible, ironically. But we already have a precedence for that that's laid out in Numbers chapter 12, 1 through 8. This is where we see Moses' sister, Miriam, kind of a little jelly of Moses and the fact that he speaks for God. And so she asks, well, aren't we also prophets? And the response that God gives is, no, I don't speak to you the way that I speak to Moses. I speak to other prophets in dreams and in visions, but I speak to Moses face to face. I speak directly to him. So even the Torah itself sets a precedence for elevating the words of one prophet above all of the rest. And within the Torah also is one of the prophecies about the Messiah. It says, that God would send a prophet like Moses. We find this in Deuteronomy 18. It's repeated actually by Stephen in his sermon in Acts chapter 3. So if Jesus is the prophet like Moses, then certainly we have a precedence for elevating his words above the rest of the apostles if we see any point of disagreement. Again, I don't believe that agreement exists, but if we're going to take the position that there is some kind of a contradiction, then certainly Jesus's words need to be the ones that we take precedence with. The third problem that I see with this is that because of what it says in Matthew chapter 5, it actually makes Paul least in the kingdom of heaven. Okay, to presume that Paul is teaching anything anti-Torah or against a Torah-centric doctrine would actually place him as being least in the kingdom, as we see in Matthew 5:17. Jesus says, I didn't come to abolish the law. Don't think that I came to abolish the law. I came to fulfill it. So it's an interesting phrasing. See, he says, I didn't come to do this twice to kind of give precedence to look, this is what I didn't come to do. And he says he came to fulfill it. And then he says that heaven and earth will pass away. So basically, until the end of the age, the law will stand firm. And he says, any who do the law and teach the law will be greatest in the kingdom, but any who disobey the law and teach against it will be least in the kingdom. So based on this alone, if we're accepting any kind of premise where Paul is teaching an anti-Torah-centric doctrine, then what we're doing is, according to the words of Jesus, we're making Paul least in the kingdom. And I don't think that's the case again. But the fourth problem is that it actually removes Paul from his context. One of the most important things to remember when reading Paul is that he was a Pharisee. Not was in the past tense of like, he was a Pharisee, but then he became a Christian. No, he was a Pharisee his entire life. And we see him make statements throughout the New Testament of the affirmative in the active sense. In other words, presently. The example that jumps out at me, I think, is in Philippians 5. And so understanding the Pharisaic nature of the words of Paul, it's if you don't understand Pharisaic philosophy, if you don't understand Jewish philosophy and theology, you're probably not going to fully grasp everything that Paul says. Peter in 2 Peter 3:16 says that Paul is difficult to understand for the uneducated, and he specifically uses the word uneducated. So this presumes that there is a system of education by which one can gain the knowledge to understand what Paul is writing about. Now, we didn't have seminary at the time, and theological schools, divinity schools, did not exist at the time that Peter wrote this. But there was a form of theological education that one could get and learn in, and that would be the education that came at the foot of a rabbi, which would most likely be a Pharisee. So the way that these verses, typically from Paul, come about is almost like a chain. The person taking the affirmative, like I said earlier, has to chase the opponent through this chain of Paul's letters. And it's if you could imagine each passage being a link in that chain, and I've described this in a TikTok video before, they'll never concede that a verse actually doesn't mean what they originally thought it meant. They'll do what they do with Matthew 5, rather than actually address the passage once it has been examined and re-explained by the affirmative position. They just move on to the next passage. Instead of saying, oh, okay, well, I can see how that verse means that, they'll say, well, what do you think about this passage then? And so they just jump right to the next passage. And so there's never an acknowledgement that the links in that chain are being broken. The reason this tends to be the way that this comes about is because Christian mindset tends to be of such that they think if they get to the end of this list of verses that they believe affirm their position, and even if you can dismantle all of the verses in that list except the last one, if the last one stays, they think they get to keep the whole list. That is not the case. A chain cannot stay intact with just the last link still intact. And if the chain breaks, then the doctrine is false. And that tends to be my position. And I think through this discussion, we will find out exactly how strong the chain is. Full stop.
All right, we're off to a very good start. What do you think, Nate?
Well, from Brad's take, it sounds like the debate's already happened. He laid the whole debate out how it usually goes. So I don't think we even have to listen to Eddie. No.
I might agree with that, but we are promised, like Eddie, a time to lay out his position. So I don't want to be that guy. So even though we probably don't really need to.
Okay, so I guess let's hear what Eddie has to say about it.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe Eddie will sway everyone the opposite direction.
Maybe.
You don't know.
Come on, surprise us, Eddie. Come on, man.
Yeah, come on. Bring your A game.
You got this.
All right.
All right. That was pretty cool, Brad. I think you'll be refreshed by this because I was going to save Paul for cross-examination for the very same reason that you were talking about. I don't like chasing scripture either. And hopefully I'm going to make a different case than maybe one you've heard before. I doubt it, as good as you are at this. But so the Old Testament is very important. It's so we can know who Jesus is and the fullness of his atoning sacrifice. One can come to Christianity evidentially, but to understand exactly who Jesus is and the fullness of what was accomplished, we must study the Old Testament along with the oral traditions such as the Torah. So this discussion, debate, whatever you want to call it, I think is more about should Christians keep the Torah, and what exactly does that mean? So the simple answer is, should Christians keep the Torah? Yes and no. Well, what I mean by that is it's important to realize what Jesus says and doesn't say. And Brad will be happy to know that most of this is focused around Matthew 5:17, except for supporting things to lay the case out. So Matthew 5:17-20, do not think that I came to abolish the Torah or the prophets. I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill. I tell you, until heaven and earth pass away, not a jot or tittle shall ever pass away from the Torah until all things come to pass. Therefore, whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others the same shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever keeps and teaches them, this one they shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you that unless your righteousness exceeds that of the Pharisees and the Torah scholars, you shall never enter the kingdom of heaven. So what Jesus didn't say was he came to keep the law or reinforce the law. He came to fulfill it. If it were to say to keep the same or continue or abolish, fulfill would have no meaning. Matthew used fulfill more than the rest of the New Testament combined. In Matthew, the Greek word plehora, whatever. It's Greek. I can't speak Greek. It's a verb, means to render full, to make full, to fill up. Fulfill seems to imply progress and time, while keeping or intensifying is an atemporal and abstract. When prophecy is actualized, it is fulfilled. So what are the prophecies? Matthew 11:13, for until John, all the prophets and the law foretold things to come. Romans 10:4, for Christ is the telos of the law and brings righteousness for everyone who has faith. Telos has long been debated. It can indicate end or goal of or culmination. That doesn't mean end as in abolish, but more likely an end which a trajectory was pointed to. Paul in Romans 1:18 through 3:20, all have sinned, unable to keep the law, none are righteous. Romans 3:21, but now, until this time, until this time in redemptive history, apart from the law, the prophets and the law was bearing witness to it. The righteousness of God has been made known. So to get a full picture of it, we got to understand what typology is, or typology. Typology is types and antitypes. So you have a type in the Old Testament, which is lesser, precedes and foreshadows the antitype, which is the greater in excess. So in Deuteronomy 18:15-22, paraphrasing it, God will raise up a prophet like me, Moses, from your people. It is to him you must listen to. The Lord said to me, what they said is right. I shall rise them a prophet like you. I shall put my words in his mouth. He will declare them whatever I command. You who don't listen will be held to account. Acts 3:22-26 and John 14:10 confirms that this is Christ. Other typology, 2 Samuel 7:14, Solomon's the immediate fulfillment. Christ is a future ultimate fulfillment. Isaiah 9 is a Davidic typology. So what did Jesus say? Luke 24:44-47. Everything written about me in the law of Moses and prophets and Psalms bound to be fulfilled. Scriptures foretell the sufferings of the Messiah rising from the dead on the third day. John 5:45-47. Don't think I accuse you before the Father. Moses accuses you, whom your hope is in. If you believed Moses, you would believe me because he wrote about me. Christ fulfilled the prophecies of the prophets and fulfilled the prophecy of the law. So back to Matthew chapter 5, the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus took his place on the mountain, as did Moses, and delivered the law, as did Moses. He gave the word, like in Deuteronomy 18 I read before, that God gave him. The structure of the sermon is known as an inclusio. also known as bracketing or an envelope structure, consisting of creating a frame by placing similar materials at the beginning and the end. 517, he mentions Torah or prophets. 712 is Torah and prophets. And then he sums up or fulfills the law in the middle: love our neighbors as ourselves, do unto others as we would have them to do unto us. Just a quick summary between the bracketing. So the laws, there were 613 laws. 369 were only able to be kept by most in Jewish history because of exile and no temple. About 75% of the Torah says for all time, forever, etc., and hasn't been able to be kept. The blood sacrifice, cleansing and atonement, the high priest. Jesus said if the least of these commands, the Torah, are broken, they will be least in heaven. He reinforces civil law and makes the moral law deeper and more intense. Christ fulfills and brings the law to the highest meaning. The Torah was pointing towards Jesus. Jesus was the culmination of the Torah. The covenant at Sinai was given for understanding and fear of God. It was to also draw Israel out of the world, to keep them from intermingling with the pagan cultures around them. Hebrews 8 and 9, there is a new covenant, a better covenant. The old covenant has been fulfilled, served its purpose. The new covenant is the antitype to the type, the lesser and preceding or foreshadowing. The new covenant, Jesus is the high priest, the ultimate high priest. The new temple, Jesus is the intermediator, the ultimate temple. The old covenant was not kept by Israel. It was broken. So God made a new covenant, a better covenant, as stated in Jeremiah 31 through 34. Jesus became the ultimate sacrifice. The goats and the calves were the type for the sacrifice, and Jesus was the antitype. The greater, the greater and the one to which the type foreshadowed. Death is required for a covenant. As with Moses, every commandment in sacrificing the blood of the covenant which God commanded. The priest entered every year. Christ once for all time. Salvation for all time. Christ became the Passover lamb, the ultimate Passover lamb, once and for all. Why was Israel commanded to observe the Passover? Because of the deliverance from Pharaoh. But why continue to look back at that? Because they were delivered many times, because God wanted them to remember. It was pointing to the ultimate Passover lamb, the ultimate sacrifice, Christ. The Passover was fulfilled. The type was foreshadowing the greater antitype, Jesus. He was the ultimate Passover for sins. Christ said to now do this in remembrance of me at the Lord's Supper. The spring calendar of Israel is fulfilled. The Passover, he rises during Passover, the first fruits, Spirit of Pentecost, Feast of Weeks. When Christ returns, he will fulfill the fall calendar. Atonement of Israel, gathering of the nations, Feast of Trumpets, Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement, and Sukkot, Day of Tabernacles. And with that, I will yield the rest of my time.
All right. So, Eddie had a pretty strong follow-up there, Nate. He surprised me a little bit. What do you think?
You could tell he did his study work, which is surprising because usually he likes to read comic books instead before debate.
Yeah.
So I think Brad had him in a mode. Yeah, Brad had him in a mode of doing more study than he's used to, I believe. So someone mentioned Spider-Man in the chat along with X-Men. So
I saw that. I got excited. Spider-Man versus X-Men.
Yeah, I think they know Eddie a little bit, but sorry, folks. Looks like he's studied up, so had a lot of good points, a lot of points at different scriptures in the Bible to validate his position on it. So this is where it might get a little interesting though when they go back and forth. We see because a lot of the points may match up, or it seems like they may match up, and then from that point, you might see it in the cross examination where these
Good.
points start to differ. So.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. To everyone in the chat, we're giving them a few minutes to take a break, drink water or beer or whatever the choice is, and use the bathroom, whatever they got to do before the cross-examination period. Nate, did you notice that Eddie had something going on with his eye there?
Yeah, what's up with all the injuries?
He seemed to have his reference like above his monitor, so like you could see like something was going on. I wonder if Brad like met him in an alley and like decked him a good one to give him like an edge over. I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
Well, I know he didn't do a backflip. I think he would have told us if that was the case. No, so maybe they did get into like a back alley brawl beforehand.
I would highly discourage any backflip attempts from anyone who's over 30.
Yeah, I try to stay out of the extreme sports realm as a whole.
Yeah,
anything with
that's definitely safest. That's definitely the safest. You don't want to lose a tooth over.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to do something silly like that.
Like this.
That's a good look, man.
Yeah, it's not a good look. It's not a good look at all. It's not a good feel either.
Did you do that for like ease for straw use or?
No, but it is convenient for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
that's almost exclusively how I can eat now. It's like through a straw. So, like I could like muscle through like a sandwich, but it hurts. Or at least it did before they like covered it up. Because my nerve was exposed.
And you like use fork and knife to cut your.
No, I throw like my steak and my chicken and my broccoli in like a blender, and then I use a straw, which I recommend everyone do. By the way, it is a great way to intake your keep track of your calorie intake. Just drink your meat through a straw. Your meat and vegetables. Do it.
That's not how I usually do it, but I might have to try it out. Does it taste as good if you mix it all up?
No, the taste is horrible.
Oh, okay.
No, yeah. The taste, but it's easy to get it all in.
Mm-hmm.
It's because I'm a very lazy person, so like the convenience of just drinking in my 2,000 calorie a day intake is that is my jam.
Mm-hmm. So you're pretty big on TikTok. Have you gotten a big response with the new look? People like the new look, or
no? I got a bunch of comments like, "Why do you have blood on your lip?" Like, there's a bunch of people who don't know what happened. And then my recent videos are like, "Is that blood in your mustache? Why do you have like?" There's a bunch of them, and I'm like, "Yeah, you got to go back a little bit and see what happened."
You have like cleft lip growing or something.
Yeah, the doctors actually offered me stitches. They were like, when it heals, it's going to have a pretty bad scar, so we can give you stitches so it's not that bad. And I was like, I would rather have a badass looking scar than have a bunch of needles shoved through my upper lip. So no, I'm good. I'm good. Just hard pass for me.
I see Ethan is there in the chat asking.
Yeah, Ethan.
Cooking debate. I know we were talking about food, and he loves
why is Guy Fieri commenting?
Guy Fieri.
I think he's referring to you, Nate.
Yeah.
Do you have an alter ego?
Well, welcome to Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. Is that
Theology
the name of the show? So, yeah.
Dinner and theology. Have a theology and some ontology fries.
Mm-hmm.
And an eschatological shake.
Yeah.
To go with.
Yeah, I mean, I think
other big words.
Idea, actually.
Other big words.
I don't understand why Ethan doesn't like the idea.
I don't see the problem is here.
Ethan.
All right. So let's see if Brad and Eddie are ready for their Q&A. Go ahead and bring them both up here, dear.
Both of them?
Yeah.
Do you want to stay on the screen?
Yeah, keep us on here. There you go. Y'all want to unmute yourselves? Or?
Yeah, ontology fries. That is a classic. I'm still in that.
It's
Yeah,
like freedom fries. You remember the whole thing back in the
Dude,
day?
Oh
yes.
my gosh.
Oh, I've never. I don't think I've ever been more embarrassed to be an American.
Mm.
No, that's
Well-
not true. I've been more embarrassed.
I was gonna say there's
There's
quite
a few other
times
things
there.
that were
There's
worse
been
than
recent
freedom
Liberty
fries.
toast.
Yeah.
Well,
was
the
a lot
funny
of,
thing
like-
is, a lot of people who were saying that would have got their ass kicked by Frenchmen. So
Yeah, that's fair. I was wondering how far they want to take that. Like, are they going to do like French braids? Or are they going to do like freedom braids or like French poodles? Or are they going to call them like Liberty poodles now? Like how
if they were
battle
smart,
braids?
they would do what Canada did and put gravy and cheese on it and call it poutine.
Hmm.
It's some good stuff, man.
Sounds
I'll,
all right. I mean,
I'll take your
we
word
got the
for it.
SOS going for us here for
Yeah.
my military guys, right?
There you go.
Yeah, the eye thing. Yeah, and I forgot I wasn't supposed to talk back to my wife, and she reminded me.
Yeah, you just blink twice, Eddie. Just blink twice. We'll
You
send
already had
help.
a debate today.
No, I actually woke up like that. I didn't have any pain or anything, and I looked in the mirror. I was like, "What in the hell is going on?" I do have high blood pressure, so I think it might be related.
If you don't have high blood pressure, are you even living?
Right. You
Right,
can't be an
right.
American. I'm on 3 blood pressure medicines, so
Like, what is life without steak? You know,
yeah.
If your
cares
resting
about blood
heart rate
pressure?
isn't like triple the the recommended amount, then like are you even a sentient human
Right, yeah.
being on the
Right.
planet Earth?
I just want to know who goes by the BMI scale. Does anyone
Well,
here go by
Yeah,
BMI scale? For
There's,
I don't-
you
I
know,
don't- I don't think
you
so.
know what? I heard a little nuance to that, Nate.
health? Give it to me.
So we all pretty much have around the same size heart, and your body doesn't care if your mass is fat or muscle. You have more tissue to diffuse, so over time it weakens the heart. So bigger people tend to live shorter lives than smaller people because of the amount of tissue it has to be diffused. So that's why they go by the BMI. Like John Curse is the freak, is like 3% body fat was considered obese because it will shorten his life. But, it's like 1 year, 2 years, maybe not, but that's how it was explained to me by my doctor. That's why it's important.
I'm
Yes,
gonna go drink a milkshake. I think
That's how
like a chocolate milkshake.
celebrate. That's how Andre the Giant died. Like his heart just wasn't big
Yep.
enough to sustain his
Have you seen the
massive,
list
colossal body.
of what that guy could drink?
Yes.
It was something like, like 40 gallons or liters of beer or something like
Yeah.
that. Like, yeah, he
Yeah,
could
he
drink, and
Could put him down.
Mm-hmm.
not all
and
heroes wear capes.
Apparently he had like record breaking farts too.
Oh my
Like,
gosh!
He
Oh,
would
that
last
everyone that
for, like,
came-
minutes at a time.
I could have done
everyone
without that
that-
mental image. Or
That's
For everyone that came to watch the debate / discussion on the Torah, welcome to Wacky World, where we talk about large men's beer drinking ability and their flatulence.
it's a toilet humor hour. It's a new segment. We're trial running it right now.
Just in the breaks of the discussion.
Yeah.
This is
Hopefully-
what
hopefully
this is what
Eddie and
men
Brad
who
will
are theists
continue.
and atheists can all agree on.
that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Well, I
Farts
was
are
going to
funny.
start. I was going to start my rebuttal off, or my opening with, since we're theists and we have magic sky daddies, I can pretty much declare what I want. It's over and done.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's,
I don't think that's how that works.
I know. Well, I thought about it, but
All right. So you guys ready for the cross examination?
yes.
All right. So we got Brad first. He is going to do about 5 minutes of questioning Eddie, and Eddie's going to respond at his leisure, and then Eddie is going to ask Brad 5 minutes worth of questions.
5 questions. Make them
Not
count.
bad.
Yeah.
5 minutes worth of, yes. For 5 minutes, you're going to question him. It's like an
Eddie would've gotten
interrogation without the
If Eddie would have
handcuffs.
gotten the right glasses, it would have skewed the debate.
Yeah, I
think.
know. It's well with these headphones, these things are like awesome. So
Son of a gun.
glasses got to wait. And I hate that I'm looking up, but I'm restreaming this, and it wouldn't work on that screen, so I had to put it on this one. And It bothers me, but it is what it is.
Already starting with the excuses.
Oh, I know.
Even though I don't think we were going to technically declare a winner unless the chat really wanted to.
Oh, I came fully
Eddie's-
prepared to get
Eddie's
my ass
already,
whooped, but I just want to make a good case.
Eddie-
No, I like Brad.
I just want to get it right.
I just want to get it right. I just want to get it right. I can't believe Pasta did that. That's illegal.
No, it's not.
Oh, man.
Don't change the subject.
All right, Nate and I are going to disappear off the screen, and when we do, you guys have at it. Oh wait, we have a phone call.
Hold on, we have a random phone call. We need to find out what's going on here.
Brad,
someone-
turn your ringer off,
All right.
man. Come on.
Yeah,
Is someone calling to tell you how bad you're doing, Eddie? Is that what it is?
I think it was a
Call him the
like,
trash
phone a
talk.
friend. Yeah.
Oh,
That's it.
that's
It's
the
like,
next
bro,
level
did you
trolling.
lose yet?
I
Did you
enjoy
lose
that.
yet?
All right, so we'll try this
Yeah,
again. We're gonna
no
hop off
helpers.
screen, and you guys have fun.
So first, I want to know, was
Okay.
that something you haven't heard?
It's the one I've heard it, but I've heard
Okay.
it the least.
Okay.
I've only that one I have only heard argued. Probably, I could still count on one hand the amount of times I've heard this
Okay.
argument. There, you did introduce one new aspect, which was to reference, the Passover being a completion of prophecy. Or rather, Jesus being a completion of the prophecy of the Passover, and kind of where you went with that. I do have a response to it, but we'll get there when we get there. So first question, because you referenced the word telos,
Mhm.
that's an important one, because we do see it in Romans that Christ is the end of the law. That's one of the most common verses that is used. But then later in the book of Timothy, it is translated as goal. So could you agree that whether or not it's translated end or goal would effectively change the way we understand, is Christ the end of the law, or is he the goal of the law? Because I don't see those two meaning the same thing. I think that they would mean something different. Is that something you could agree with? Or
Yeah. I just wanted to add the, make sure people realize that it was, not set in stone. There is, argument over exactly what the meaning is, but I would argue that it from, looking at it from typological or prophecy, I would say it would probably be a goal, not an end. That's why I added, the part about not end as in to do away with. I don't think
Right.
that was the intention.
right. It's hard with the New Testament, particularly.
Yeah.
This kind of goes into one of my second questions is, the New Testament that we have, at least the one that we currently have, is written in Greek. And I almost hate to say the New Testament as though it's an actual, fully collected series, because what we have are fragments of Greek manuscripts, but they happen to all be in Greek. But Jesus likely did not speak Greek. So there's an interesting way of explaining the word plerou that I think we could get into a little bit later. But so Jesus, you quoted where Jesus said that, or rather where Moses said that this prophet like him would speak God's words, right? God says that he will speak my words. And even Jesus does say, I only speak that which the Father tells me. But so what are God's words, though? Like, is there a biblical example that you think we could get that are God's words, like his very own words?
Yeah. I mean, the Torah itself would be God's words. My only hang up with that is, when we think about types and antitypes, Jesus being, in that aspect, the antitype to Moses, he took his place on the mount. He preached from the Torah, the moral laws. He seemed to reaffirm civil laws. But in the the word I'm missing, what type of rhetorical device it is. uh, the inclusio, he, when he brackets so he starts off with the introduction, and then he goes through the Beatitudes. And is it the Beatitudes? Yeah. He kind of sets the backstory. Yeah. And then we get to the law or the prophets. And then there's a body there. And then he goes to the law and the prophets. And then he goes from there to a closing. And the way it seems that Jesus is presenting it is the way in Deuteronomy that it said that the prophet to come would have God's law that was commanded by God. And he seemed to have taught it in a way that it was from God, because it was not exactly like the Torah. He kind of expounded more on it. So to me, it just seems that, given all of the similarities, the parallels and everything, with him taking his place on the mountain and teaching from it like Moses, and giving them the law like Moses did, it seemed that as if Jesus was making the point to say, these are the laws. Not that the other ones are done away with, but almost like the morality of it, the heart, because Jesus, everything was about intention, heart, spirit. It was, he kind of made everything about people's intentions and things. So I think it's just hard for me to say that, that he was intending to keep the old laws with the idea of the atonement, the Passover. If the Passover was pointing to Jesus and Jesus was the ultimate Passover, I think it seems to kind of follow that that was Jesus saying, this is the new covenant. This is how it is now.
All right. So we are reached our 5 minutes mark for Brad.
Well, I kind of bloviated on that. So if he had a couple more questions, I'd be willing to grant him time.
I think you got like an extra minute or so. So
okay, yeah,
not that big of a deal. But if it runs that way, then we'll grant it, of course. All right. So Eddie, you're up.
So Brad, this is going through this. One of the things I kind of picked up on with Paul, talking about Paul, it seemed as though Paul was pretty adamant that if one is a Jew and they become a Christian and they're convicted to keep the Jewish law or the Torah, then that's what they should do. And the Gentiles should be Gentiles, if they didn't feel they were to keep the law. Basically, it seemed like, because he says, I became a Jew to minister to the Jews. I became under the law to minister to those under the law. I wasn't under the law to minister to the ones that aren't under the law. He seemed to kind of err on, if you are a Jew and you become a Christian and you're convicted, keep practicing. But if you're a Gentile, just don't put it on the Gentiles. And it seems to be, the first in Acts, the first church council, that was kind of what was there. So do you think that, would there be an issue if it was for Jews to remain Jews and Gentiles to remain Gentiles? Or do you think we all should be grafted in or adopted as Jews?
Yeah, so for me, I think a lot of this really depends on the phrasing that's used. There are a lot of times in the book of Acts and in Paul's letters where we see him use particular words that are addressing particular people. So one of them in Acts chapter 13 or 14, where he's addressing a full synagogue, and he says, brothers, sons of Abraham and devout men. It's important to understand that he's not addressing one full crowd. He is, but he is addressing three specific subgroups that are within the crowd. Brothers being Jews. Sons of Abraham would be Gentiles who had converted to Judaism. And devout men would be like Cornelius that we see in Acts chapter 10, who were Gentiles who loved the Hebrew God and served the Hebrew God, but had not converted to Judaism legally for one reason or another. In the case of Cornelius, being that he, his government position would have made that, it would have been a death penalty for him to convert to Judaism. But nonetheless, these devout men, historically, what we understand, and again, using Cornelius as a case, is that they observed the Torah. Matter of fact, in the case of Cornelius, we see him specifically observing one of the 3 times of daily prayer, which is not even in the Torah. That's actually in the Jewish oral tradition. So we know for a fact that at least they were observing that amount. Where it comes to Paul saying things like, to those under the law, I became under the law. To those outside of the law, I became as outside of the law. I don't think it's correct necessarily to presume that Paul is being deceitful, which if he's pretending to be something that he's not, that would be deceitful. But I think meeting people where they're at, kind of meeting them on their level and explaining things to them on their level is probably a more likely outcome of what Paul is trying to explain. We see in Acts chapter 21, James addresses Paul and he says, "Hey, look, we have heard that you've been teaching people to forsake Moses and the customs," which is again a reference to the Jewish oral tradition. And he says, we've heard that you've been teaching these things. Now, to prove that this is not what you're teaching and what we've heard is wrong, why don't you take this vow with these 5 men, make this sacrifice, because there were a number of sacrifices involved with the Nazirite vow, and then pay for these other 4 or 5 men to do it with you. That's a hefty price to pay, not only to make a sacrifice at the temple, which again raises questions about the nature of what Jesus' sacrifice meant for the temple system, because Paul and James both clearly saw no problem with continuing to make sacrifices at the temple even after Jesus' death, and this is proof of that. But it's a hefty price to pay just to kind of hoodwink somebody into believing that you're not teaching something that you are teaching, if we presume that actually is what Paul was teaching. So I think the evidence in the text in that case would suggest that maybe we're not understanding Paul's words fully.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I steered away from using Paul is because a lot of people who aren't familiar with Paul don't realize that he's a man of extremes. He will go from one extreme to the next, so it's really hard, considering he was talking mostly to specific churches about specific issues, to say this is. Now, I'm not denying Paul as an apostle and giving us theology. But I'm not real big on Pauline theology because of so many specific things he was addressing in churches and his tendency to go to extremes. So I kind of wanted to try and meet, together with the Jewishness, like you and I talked about. I think that's something that Christianity today has lost. We don't understand the cultural context, and when we strip that and we look at the church traditions and the dogma that's come in, and the Greek philosophies and all of these that's kind of permeated it, we lose sight of the beauty of a lot of fundamentalists want to talk about direct prophecy, and they miss the total parallels, the typological prophecy, the trajectories. I mean, it's phenomenal. It's almost like it's the world's biggest collusion, to get a story like, which I can see why people from the outside would say, bro, they made him look like the Messiah, because it's just so much of it was there. But sorry, Dad, boy, I saw we had a minute left. I was bloviating again.
No problem. All right, we're gonna get you guys off the screen, let you get a little bit of break, and me and Nate are gonna talk about how bad you did, Eddie.
Oh yeah, sweet. That's what I like.
What's up?
All right. So what'd you think about that?
This is
Eddie,
a really heated
Nate?
debate. It's obvious that they were
there's
really
a lot of screaming, a lot
Yeah.
of disagreements here.
Yeah, it's a very normal debate where the interlocutors, they have very similar viewpoints on a lot of the positions as a whole. I mean, that's normal, right?
Yeah.
No. It's
Yeah.
not?
It's,
Well, yeah.
which is why it's weird. They're so aggressive. You know, I think they should be
Right.
able to be. I think they'd be more civil. You know, but they're going straight for the jugular here. I don't know what happened.
It's like they're sitting in Brad's living room, like kind of talking through these points. They both have a drink. They're just kind of real chill on everything. It's a
I'm
bit
wondering
odd.
if after Brad like decked Eddie in that alley, which he obviously did, he took him to his apartment and he's actually duct taped to that chair.
Yeah.
So I
could
think
see
that's
that.
what's happening. Like I think Brad's like threatening, him to throw the fight. You know,
Possibly, or Eddie could just be nervous because Brad's beard's better. I don't know. It's
I don't
definitely
know.
groomed better.
Beard analysis. Oh, we could spend hours on that.
Beard envy. Yeah.
Beard and B and B.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No.
All right.
I think that's what it is. It was either the alley fight, or maybe Eddie just ate some bad tuna or something, because he has been burping a little bit. So
Bad tune. You're right about that. I didn't even notice that, but now that you say that, you're right. He has been burping a little. Maybe
I look
he's
for the really intricate details during a debate.
apparently. Yeah, that's a good point. I wonder what caused that. He's binge eating tuna to curb his nervousness. Because Brad is holding him hostage in his own house.
Eddie's yelling at me in the chat, so maybe we should bring him.
It's all coming together. It all makes sense.
We can have him speak for himself.
See what's happening here.
Well, I don't even know where that came from, but he can speak for himself.
Yeah.
And tell us if
all right.
the tuna.
So we're going to give these guys time to make their closing statements. It'll be about 5 minutes-ish each. And afterwards, we will all come on the screen together, and then we'll talk about how wrong both of them are.
You're going to protect me from Eddie?
Because we're atheists. Yeah, I got you. I got you, fam.
Yep.
I can't protect you from Brad's right hook, though. It seems to be pretty mean.
And I wouldn't want anyone.
Yeah, I'm not jumping in the way of that.
You already lost one tooth. I wouldn't want you to lose.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't want to lose an eye too, like Eddie is.
I feel kind of out of the loop. I don't have any injuries, so maybe Brad can give me one.
You should get on it, man. You're not living life enough. Apparently, you're not taking enough risks. Yeah,
I guess.
See, we're all over here loving life, and you're just. What are you even doing, Nate?
Just waking up
to weird rock concerts outside your house.
Yeah, and my shoulder is hurting because I laid on it too long.
No, yeah, that happens with age.
That kind of pain, It's not like, hey, look at these cool things I'm doing, like fighting or backflips or
getting punched by Brad in an alley.
Yeah.
No.
It's just, hey, I woke up and my back hurts a little bit. So.
Yeah. It's all good. Just take some Advil. You're right.
It's all good.
Let's get Brad up here, and he will give his closing statement. And yeah,
do it.
We'll keep on keeping on.
All right. Just want to say, guys, also, there's like plenty of room beside Eddie on the couch, and we're having a party here. I'm upstairs. He's downstairs right now, but we could have a party with this. I actually did not. I didn't have the time to actually prepare a closing statement. I had prepared several notes actually for the way that I thought that this would go. Because that's how this usually goes. But as time went on, it went a little differently. So I'm going to wing this. But a couple of responses actually to Eddie's initial opening statement is that the word pleru, which he brought up, which is what we read in Greek as fulfill. It was a very, very well made point. One of the things about the word, though, is that it's used 13 times in the whole of the New Testament, and 12 out of those 13 times, it is used in the passive sense. This is actually the only time in the whole New Testament it's used in the active sense. Now, in the passive sense, one example that we get is like Matthew. Oh, where is it? It's basically when they're pulling in fish into the boat, right? And then the boat is filled with fish. It's the same word used there. And that's an example of the passive sense, is the idea to fill up to completion. But in the active sense, it takes on another meaning, a meaning that is more so of an affirmation, which I typically use the words confirm and establish. And that's because, again, Jesus did not speak Greek. At least he didn't speak it as a common practice. Most likely he spoke Hebrew. At the very least, maybe he spoke Aramaic. So how do we know what Jesus actually said? Because the Greek text gives us a little bit of a problem there. So one example that you can do is try and find a passage in the Old Testament that fits the context, which contextually, this would be actually in Numbers 30, verse 14, where it's speaking about how a wife can make a vow and her husband can either confirm or cancel that vow because she's under the headship of her husband. So whatever vow she makes to God can be vetoed by the husband. He holds that power. And so there we have two examples of the same nature, is the confirm and cancel, or the abolish or fulfill. But so the Hebrew word there is actually the word kum, which pleru, the other tactic we can use is try and find the word pleru in the Septuagint and see where it translates and what it translates to. Kum, unfortunately, if we're going to take that approach, never translates as pleru in the Septuagint. However, the Hebrew word malay does. And malay, in the same sense, can translate in terms of like to fill, to completion. But contextually, again, we have to look for something that fits the context of what we're saying. So in 1 Kings 1:14, the word malay is used, and this is one of the passages where it actually does translate as pleru in the Septuagint, where Nathan the prophet and the queen are discussing to go and tell the king what's happening at the time. So Nathan tells the queen, look, you go into the king and speak your piece. I will then come in and fulfill your words. Now, he's not bringing her words to completion. He's not, filling them up so that they're full in the sense of like, okay, the cup is full. Now we don't need the cup. What he's doing is he's actually giving vitality. He's confirming her words. He's establishing exactly how true those words are. So even if we use this tactic of kind of surmising what Jesus probably said in Matthew 5 in Hebrew, it still doesn't lead us to the conclusion that the law is somehow done away with, or that it's invalid for a believer's life. I also realized that I didn't finish answering Eddie's question that he gave to me in the cross-examination, and that's that he asked, should Jews separate, and Jews be Jews and Gentiles be Gentiles? That can't be the case. So Romans 11 establishes that Gentiles are grafted into Israel. So they're part of the family. This would then mean that the house rules apply. If you adopted kids, you wouldn't have a separate set of rule for your adopted kids and your natural born kids. But then Ephesians 2 actually further establishes that point where he says, look, you were without hope, cut off from the covenants of promise. And now because of Jesus, you have been brought near to the covenants of promise. Well, tied to that covenant is the law. We see this even in Jeremiah 31, where, the law is written on the heart. And what that means actually is, whereas before it was written on stone, now it's on the heart. Now we actually should have the will to do it if we're believers in Yeshua. And so definitely there shouldn't be two houses. It's intended to be one house. It's intended to be one family. It's the kingdom of Israel, and that kingdom has laws. And if you're a citizen of that kingdom now, those laws then apply.
All right. Well said. Is that about, I guess you didn't prepare anything, Brad. But,
right. So that's, yeah.
You winged it well. You played it off very well, I must say. Now we're going to bring Eddie up and hear what he has to say. Yeah. Here we go. Closing statement. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Closing statement is, Nate, you can talk about anything about me you want, but when you talk about my beard, it's going to go down, baby. So, like Brad, I didn't prepare a closing statement. And the reason being is I wanted to see where the conversation went. And I wanted to kind of address points in there that we may have not gotten across. So, one, I would agree with Brad on a lot of points. One is the Torah, the written Torah, the oral Torah is extremely important. I would agree with him about the separation also. That's not, if that's what I implied, or it seemed like I was implying, that's not what I was implying. I think we all are brothers and sisters in Christ, regardless of what we're convicted to practice. I think it was just more of with Paul, with the Jerusalem Council, with I think it was Peter who had the dream about unclean meat, and Jesus said not to call anything unclean. We have, I believe it was Paul that said, all things are permissible, all things are not beneficial. I don't think it's a clear-cut, dry case on either side because of the very same reason that Brad said, and that is they were more than likely speaking Aramaic, Hebrew, and translating that to Greek, later Latin, and now English. There's bound to be things that we can't get the fullness of. One thing the one thing I would caution Brad with is that Jesus didn't seem to say to do away with the law. That's dancing on an argument from silence. We have to approach it with what it says. And given the nature of typological prophecy, how rampant it is from the New Testament and the Old Testament, and we see all these trajectories, like I said, why were they told to keep Passover when they were delivered many times? Well, it's because the Passover was pointing to the ultimate Passover lamb, which was Jesus. Jesus said to do this in remembrance of me. Looking at the inclusio for for Matthew chapter 5, it seems like Jesus is summarizing the law, but I want to be careful and make sure people understand that I'm not saying Jesus did away with the law. I think dietary guidelines in the law, I think there are several things in the law that are still possibly, arguably, we should be observant of. I don't find the evidence for that without an argument from silence. And on top of that, when we look at the amount of, typological prophecy, Jesus is the Moses, he's taking his place on the mountain, just like Moses did. He's delivering the law just like Moses did. He's telling them that, it's like the law is Jesus's law, and it's grace, and it's saved by faith through grace. It's no longer being righteous by the law. I would end it with, I think that what is not clear in Scripture, but is convicting to someone's conscience, is what they should do. I think if someone is a Messianic Jew, Hebrew roots movement, mere Christian, how they are convicted by their conscience, whether it's caused by the Holy Spirit or not, I think that if they violate their conscience, then they're possibly violating what they should be doing. So I would encourage Brad, Seamus, and all these others to continue with what their conviction is. And I would encourage Christians who's not convicted to continue to read the Scripture in light of Jewish theology, in light of Jewish history. If you're still not convicted, I can't say that that's something you should do, because I don't think it's as clear cut as most people want it to be. And that's it. Oh yeah, what's oh he's giving that kitty cat some loving.
Hey, what's
that-
going on, guys?
That's what happened with the lip. Hmm. That cat whooped that lip.
I got distracted. All right, let's get everyone here. Eddie, do you need a break?
No, I'm good.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, let's get everyone else on here.
And Nate's gone. No,
Nate, you already took a nap. Do I need to
sorry.
wake you up with another concert outside your house?
Eddie was.
Yeah, we'll pay them in food.
hey, Reformed youth pastor, pay attention, please.
Oh shit!
Your beard sucks.
Your mom. That one always works. I don't know why.
No,
It just
it
always
didn't though. That's what's so bad about it.
I love you, Nate.
So, gentlemen,
Not as much as Brad now. Brad's my favorite now.
Yeah,
so.
I love Brad better than you too.
as the moderator who obviously has all the answers. I regret to inform you, you're both wrong about pretty much everything.
I was hoping you would say that. I hate when I'm right.
No, listen, you both have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
But Nate, how do you feel about how all that went? Where do you lean?
I missed like 5 minutes of it.
Oh, that was just Eddie's segment. It's not important.
Oh, just Eddie's segment. I thought
Yeah.
both of them. I actually think both did a good job. I know for a fact Eddie has done his research on this. He came through with different points that I think most people might not speak to. And so, I mean, we already knew Brad was well versed in these types of subjects. So, I think my surprise would be more that Eddie did come with some good points, and you could see that he did his research on what he was doing. But he tried to play the rope-a-dope and act like, well, I'm just going to get crushed, and then there's just like this nice discussion about things. I don't really know what he was trying to do, but he's probably still mad that Brad hit him. So.
I feel like Nate just feels like he just got a major tease.
Yeah.
I don't like being teased.
Little do you know, Nate.
Damn you, Eddie.
Brad and I had a meeting before this.
Oh, y'all prepared this.
Yeah.
Very
No,
interesting.
Quick
honestly,
shout-out
I
to-
wish. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dad.
I was going to give a quick shout out to J Mike, who just popped in the chat.
Yo, J Mike.
And we have a question from Spartan Theology that I wanted to get to. I thought it was a very good question.
Yeah. I just want to say one thing real quick.
Go ahead, go for it.
I talked to Brad earlier because I didn't want it to be where, we ended up agreeing on pretty much everything. But I wish now I would have let on a little more. I didn't know he's absolutely right. Almost every single one of these conversations comes down to people banking everything on Paul and jumping scripture to scripture to scripture, and you can't do that with Paul, man. He just, he's all over the place. And you know what, Brad, that's actually on me. I should have, because I knew preparing for it, all of these people relied so much on Paul, which is one of the reasons I didn't want to go that route. And I should have let you know that. And I even thought about, maybe sharing what it was going to be so that we could rebut each other's points.
I was pleasantly surprised. I was that was good. I was,
I appreciate that.
It was well done, man. Like, actually, that
Thank
was
you.
good.
I really appreciate that. I tell everybody my strong suit is not theology, which it really isn't, but this gave me a challenge, and I am so glad that you had challenged me on this, because when I, made the comment that I made kind of offhand in the moment, and I thought about it later, I was like, yeah, maybe, and it was like, hey, Brad wants to talk to you. And I was like, oh, I bet he does.
So Brad, make sure you hit him harder next time,
Yeah, I'm coming downstairs right now. Get ready.
or twice even, maybe.
Yeah.
Take both eyes out.
Yeah, this is the weirdest debate I've ever been around. We've just been in agreement most of the time. Let's debate. Yeah, let's debate. What do you
Well,
think?
Captain
I don't
Dadpool
agree
knows
with-
us
I
better
agree
than
with
that. He knew this
Yeah.
wouldn't be a firestorm.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Then why'd you invite me in?
Yeah.
I wanted
Well,
Saturday night fight.
If you'd have watched
We need a
any of
little
my
salt and
debates,
pepper.
if you'd have watched any of my debates, Nate, you would know I've only had one that was fireworks, and that guy was a massive asshole.
I don't want your content, Eddie.
Oh, I know. Yeah, thanks.
Who was that?
Come on,
I'm not
that
gonna tell you
That
it was
a
Mike
good one.
Burgandy.
That was a good
Okay,
one. Come on,
definitely
you gotta
wasn't.
give me
Gotcha.
credit for one. Give me credit
Loud
for
and
one
clear.
good
Name of
joke.
Charlie.
Come on.
Name of Charlie. So yeah, back to we're gonna try to get us some Q&As. Those in the comments, feel free to shoot us some questions. The first one comes from Spartan Theology, who said, "Do we have unmerited access to Jesus' words? Brad admits there is a language barrier, but don't we also only get his word through what the gospel authors chose to write?"
Brad,
you guys think
that's
about
you,
that?
baby.
My
Yeah,
answer to
Brad
that actually would be yes. And the reason being is that, again, in the words of Jesus, he only said that which his Father told him, and he only spoke the words of the Father, which we agreed the words of the Father is the Torah. And because we have access to the Torah itself in Hebrew, then we can have access to all of what Jesus said. So one thing especially that most Orthodox Jews, well, all Orthodox Jews, but maybe not Reform or Conservative or Reconstructionist Jews may not agree on this, but Orthodox Jews agree on this, is that all truth can be derived from the Torah. And I actually take the position even that the narrative of Genesis to Revelation can be derived from the first 5 books of Moses alone. For Jesus to have said anything contrary to the Torah would actually disqualify him as the Messiah. So I would say yes. Since I can read Hebrew and I can read the Torah in Hebrew, then I do have absolute access to anything Jesus might have taught.
And that is a fantastic point, which is why I was very clear about Jesus not abolishing the Torah, not ending the Torah. That's not what Jesus, because you're absolutely right. Looking at from the reading I did, a Jewish perspective was that would immediately be grounds for dismissal as a Messiah. Can you pop the question back up here, Deadpool, or did you not want me to answer that?
Rachel will. Yeah, you can go for it. One second.
Just start talking.
Was it directed at Brad?
I think it was to both of us.
Oh,
Yeah. Both of you. You're not special.
oh,
To both of you.
We can start talking.
Brad's special. Today's special. Today's special.
Hey,
Everybody
shout
loves
out
that
to
shit.
Natty Nat.
Yeah, he said, do we have unmediated access to Jesus' words? Brad admits there is a language barrier, but don't we also only get his words through what the gospel authors choose to write?
Yeah.
So I'm going to have a different perspective than Brad, because I agree with Brad with going from Aramaic or Hebrew to Greek to Latin to English. I think that the truth and the meta narrative is preserved. I think we have what God intended us to have. I think that the reason we have a lot of parables and things of that nature was because of the oral society, and that Jesus taught in ways that they could remember it. And I think regardless of, man, that Buffalo Trace is getting me, regardless of the different translations in language, I think that the truth of it is preserved. I don't think we have to have every single little word. Now, I think it's more important in the New Testament because there's not a lot of it. But I think a lot of people don't realize how many books we have out there that's just not canonical, but they are very important to understanding. So as long as the only exposure you have is not through just a evangelical, Orthodox, Catholic view of Scripture, then I think you can find the full truth of it. Because I think that the further along we get in church history, the further away from what was originally there. That's why I tell people all the time,
Having trouble connecting. There we go.
if my view is not heretical, then I need to step back and take a look at my view, because over the years, they've come up with some crazy ideas trying to make all these different things fit. And it seems as if they just studied the Torah. And when Brad talks about the Torah, he's talking about not just the written Torah, it's the oral Torah. It's an entire rich history of rabbinic teaching. And there's so much that's missed there by Christians today. I mean, it's just so rich. And I'm glad he challenged me to do this, because there's so many things that I learned going through this that I totally missed. I mean, it's like, it just illuminates everything so much better. Even if you're not a Christian, you can study the literature, you can study the teaching. And there's just so many wise people and just wisdom that's there. Did I answer?
We got a question from Natty Nat, who said, does media need to include theology in media? And then she later, or 2 minutes later, said, let me reiterate, is it really necessary to include theology in scientific topics covered by media?
I don't think so.
I would say the context is dependent.
Yeah.
And also what she means by theology versus scientific topics. So, if we're talking about a historical event that the Bible happens to mention or touch on or cover, then just because the Bible is mentioned does not automatically make it theological. The Bible is also a historical document.
Okay. Fair enough.
I have no answer better than that.
Gustavo Lustauniwa.
Gustavo
asks, my question, ultimately, what's the difference? I've experienced picking and choosing all the time. From what book it comes from is a non-issue.
I would extremely disagree with that. Because we have books that are in the Old Testament that are meant to be historical. We have a lot of books in the Bible that some are homiletics, some are poetry, some are praises, some are wisdom. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes of Western evangelicals today, is not understanding the context, what the genre, what kind of book it is. More than likely who wrote it, who they were talking to, what they were trying to convey. And I think that's where we lose a lot of the true meaning of Scripture, Old Testament and New.
I would, my answer would actually be, I mean, it's important if you study just the history of the Jewish people. They're some of the only people who have taken the pains to record their own history as well as they have. And they haven't omitted even anything that would be embarrassing, because their view on it has always been that, look, we record this so that we remember it and we never do it again. So I think there is something to be said for the accuracy and the strenuousness with which Jewish history has been recorded. And I think another problem of modern theology is that it doesn't want to acknowledge that that's what the Bible is that it's a book of Jewish history. It's the history of the Jewish people from Genesis to Revelation. It's about the Jewish people. Whether or not Gentiles are included in that would be the difference between the Old and New Testament. But we can even see from the prophets that the inclusion of the Gentile nations was always at some point the plan. As a historical source, the Jewish people tend to be almost miraculously more accurate on their own history.
And I want to make a point on top of that. Brad is exactly right. It's even when it appears to be anti-Gentile or something like that, the hope of the Messiah is that to deliver Israel and all nations through the Jewish people. So even the Greeks, even the Orthodox, they think that all nations are eventually going to be delivered through the Jewish people by the Messiah, if they're messianic. But I think a very important thing needs to be talked about that hasn't come up, and that is anti-Semitism that is rampant in Western Christianity. A lot of people don't know, Martin Luther was a very anti-Semitic person. A lot of the early church fathers, starting with, or people like Marcion, and they spent a lot of time trying to disconnect the Jewishness of it from it. And thank God we have so many people today trying to get back to the Jewish understanding. We have people, you see all kinds of books now. I'm reading one now. It's sitting at the feet of Rabbi Jesus. It's phenomenal. The things that we don't know about the culture because it's been, kind of just stripped away from its Jewishness. It's almost like, no, y'all are there. Y'all deny Christ. Y'all have what's coming to you kind of thing. And it's, in this replacement theology. And Protestantism has just grabbed it and compounded it. And I think a lot of Christians need to understand that Christianity has historically an anti-Semitic problem, and we need to bring Christianity back around to where it stemmed from. We need to give Israel, I'm not talking about Zionism, but we need to give Israel and the Jewish people the proper place in history and their proper standing for where the Messiah came from. And we need to stop, with this Western evangelical, everybody that denies Christ, or the Jews just don't get it. They killed Jesus, stuff like that. All that's got to go away. We got to get rid of all that. That's a black eye on Christianity, and that's something we need to stamp out.
You know a lot about black eyes, Eddie.
Red eyes.
Red eyes, yeah.
So we're going to go for big lips.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I deserve that. So we're going to go for like 10 more minutes on the Q&A, and then we're going to start closing things out. I think we had a question for Brad by Michael and Anne Mary Lopez. If it all boils down to our conscious, like Eddie said at the end, then what would you say is the gospel of the kingdom of God, which preaches Jesus?
Clarification, I didn't mean just our conscience.
Okay, so we can skip that question altogether.
No. I have an answer to that.
No, I would like to say, I'd like to hear Brad's answer, but I didn't mean just the conscience. I mean, the conflict within the spirit kind of thing. Yeah.
I don't think it is an issue of just conscience. And so I don't agree necessarily with the premise of the question. And the reason is because the way that we read Acts chapter 15, the way that we read other things is definitely something that, like we've discussed, kind of needs to be read over again through the lens of a first century Semitic Jewish minded person. Peter, the chapter of Acts 15 kind of is where this discussion of consciousness and the separation of the two kind of gets introduced a lot of the time. And so Peter begins by saying, well, before we get to Peter, First thing, we have some believers who are Pharisees. So first thing to note, there were Pharisees who were still believers in Jesus at this time, and they were Pharisees. They never stopped being Pharisees. But they came in and they said, look, these people need to convert to Judaism before we allow them into the community. Before they can be saved, essentially, is they need to undergo a legal conversion to Judaism. And so Peter's argument is, well, we can't put on them a burden which neither we nor our fathers could bear. Well, he's not talking about the Torah. These are Orthodox Jews who grew up in Israel. They grew up keeping the Torah, right? So that's not a burden that neither them nor their fathers could bear. They're not even talking about physical circumcision, because them and their fathers had also been circumcised. What they had never been faced with is growing up outside of Israel without the Torah, and then overnight being told, hey, you have to convert to this whole new lifestyle, and now all of these laws apply to you overnight, right? And this is the compromise that James comes up with. The compromise is, and understand that what James says at the end is in fact a compromise. You have one side saying, no, we're just going to let all these new people in, them and their pagan ways, because for a lot of them, they weren't sold out to Jesus. Like they acknowledged the Hebrew God, but they were just going to add him along with their other Greek pantheons. It was just another god to add to the pantheon to them. So you had one side saying, yeah, we're just going to let all of these new people in. You had the other side saying, no, we're going to keep all of them out until they go through our process. And so the compromise that James comes up with is, okay, look, we'll tell them to do these 4 things. This will make sure that they're at the very minimum ritually pure enough to enter a synagogue so that they can learn the Torah every week on the Sabbath. Because to read the passage any other way, you have to explain verse 21, where he says, look, Moses is taught every Sabbath day. It warrants an understanding of why he said that. So the intention is, look, they don't have to keep all of the Torah overnight, but they can learn as they grow in their faith. And I would say that that's always been the intention. So what is the gospel? Very quickly, to answer that question, the gospel is repent, for the kingdom of God is at hand. But the important thing to note about that is, in Hebrew, the word repent is teshuvah. It doesn't mean to change your mind like the Greek word. It specifically means to turn back. All of the prophets, anytime in any of the prophets that they tell Israel to repent, you have to think Israel had gone into idolatry and they had walked away from the Torah, the laws of God. So to turn back is a specific reference to turning back to the Torah, like wherever you had just come from, that's where you got to go back to.
All right. Got one more question that we'll get to, and then we'll start closing things out. Spartan Theology has another question for Brad. If you became a Trinitarian, would your theology in regards to this topic change? What say you?
With regards to Torah and the application of Torah for a modern believer, no. No, the Trinity is kind of a separate topic. They are connected. There is a point where they converge, but not enough for the Torah-centric doctrine to be affected by it.
I would definitely agree with that. Eddie, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I was going to say, I'm not necessarily Torah observant. I'm very sympathetic to it, but I'm kind of on the edge right now about Trinitarianism. So I don't think that it would change, my theology. But then again, I think we all need to be, not that Brad isn't, that's not what I'm implying, but I think we all need to kind of look at things objectively and try to decide what makes the most sense for us.
There's a quote, and I can't believe I can't remember the author now. It says, it is our duty as mankind to constantly reevaluate our position on as many topics as we can. And if we're not constantly contradicting our own positions, then we're not thinking hard enough.
Nat wanted to know if I could share my bourbon with her. Here, Nat, take a drink.
Eddie, or yeah. Eddie, Captain Dadpool, Nate, based on what Captain Dadpool just said, if that's something that you can believe and are interested in, all of you would love reading the Talmud, because it's nothing but Jewish rabbis arguing with one another about what a specific command means.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest with you, Brad. I saw your TikTok with the Talmud, the one that you could afford. But
They're expensive, man.
yes, I looked at them and I was like, oh my God, I don't know. But after the discussion we had earlier about, the nature of God and how it relates to the world, and if these are the things that are in the Talmud, bro, I'm like, I'm gonna let you buy them for me all day.
Right, I'll share them on TikTok. That'll be my contribution.
Just send me pictures of the pages. They are expensive.
All right. Well, I think we're ending things on a good note here. Guys, let's talk about what you guys got going on. Nate, let's start with you, because I haven't heard your beautiful voice in a little while. Where can people find you? What you got going on in your life?
So
Nothing.
I was thinking about the one. Looks like it was kind of a funny question that we missed from Ron and Tora.
Did we miss one?
Pick a warrior to defend you. The rest will try to kill you. Leonidas, Alexander, Chakazula.
Whoa! What are we
and
missing?
Spartacus.
I love this question.
Pick a warrior to defend you.
Okay, yeah, this is the last
will
one.
try to kill you. Leonidas,
I think we have to end on this one,
Chakazula, and
'cause,
Spartacus.
The rest will be dead,
It's
right?
a good one to end on.
Is it just them, or do they get their armies with them? Like that's
It sounds like it's just one, because it's Spartacus. Spartacus.
Well,
is
definitely not Alexander then.
Yeah, he wasn't the best.
Alexander didn't exist.
Yo.
No, have you seen? Seriously, I mean,
Here we go.
have you seen the
We
people
got a
that-
mythicist in the house.
No, you heard the people that try to argue against mythicism with Alexander the Great, and it's like, yeah, I can see where you're going with that, but there's a lot more.
I got to be honest.
I get the 300 version of Leonidas.
I am not ashamed
Nate
to
hit
admit. I'm not ashamed to admit I don't know who Shaka Zulu is. Who is that?
Shaka Zulu. I can't off the top of my. I know who it is.
So all of the references in like the movies about the early or the late 1800s, early 1900s. Okay, so yeah, you know how in Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson is a military doctor who served in war.
Yeah,
the war that he fought in is one that was like a conquest of Africa at the time. Who they were fighting were the Zulus. Guys with sticks and spears and whatnot. And so Shaka Zulu is famous because he was able to amass so many people that even though the Brits had guns against people without guns, there were so many bodies flying at them that it actually presented quite a substantial challenge. Yeah, he was a great military leader of Africa.
Sounds familiar, but yeah, I don't know much about Shaka Zulu specifically.
Yeah, it's usually like the punchline of a lot of jokes.
Right. I'm gonna say I would say Leonidas, but like only Gerard Butler's version.
Yeah, the 300 version.
Right. So Gerard Butler. I would pick Gerard Butler.
You don't think the historical Leonidas?
Leonidas.
Gerard
Butler. Yeah. Then I'm going with Shaka Khan then instead of Shaka Zulu.
I'm going with Jesus.
Oh, come on, man.
That wasn't
even in the question.
None of them rose from the dead and conquered death.
Neither did Jesus.
Sin.
So.
Bayesian analysis said he did.
Whoa, we're not trying to start a firestorm now.
This is the end of the show, guys.
Round 2, fight.
Incredulity.
Mortal Kombat.
Finish him.
Anyway,
I concede. You win, Deadpool. Based on the characters that's up there, I know the most about Leonidas, Spartacus, and I wasn't impressed with Alexander. I don't know much about Shaka Zulu, so I'm going with Leonidas.
So we
Yeah,
all
I'd have
have
to-
the same guy defending.
Yeah,
All the
Gerard
other
Butler.
ones
It
can
has
go?
to be Gerard Butler.
It
though.
has to be
it's,
Gerard
it's
Butler.
hard to pick because there's a lot of like truth in the 300 movie about us Spartans and how Lena, like, they are like, if they're born with any defect, they are thrown to just die. They're dipped in vinegar, right? And if their skin reacts badly to that, they throw them off a cliff.
Bye-bye.
And then, yeah, at the age of like 12, they're sent off into the wilderness with like a dagger, and they have to come back after killing their first like Persian or something like that. I'm a little fuzzy on the details, but like they went through this fucking trial, and like you either came back a badass or you didn't.
Yeah,
And
if
that's
I'm not
ultimately
mis-
why they died off as a culture, is because they were so strict on what males were allowed to survive and weren't.
Yeah, wasn't it the Greeks and the Romans? It was like the how your family was viewed. It was all about outside, how you were perceived. Pride in the family and things like that. And
Yeah.
I had read part of a history book where sometimes they would take baby girls and young girls and like drop them off at different brothel type places and things like that because it was it reflected bad on the family as a whole. And it was, as much credit as we give the Romans and the Greeks, they did a lot of screwed up things. Their moral compass was like, way the hell over here.
Well, Spartans did too, though.
Yes, you're right.
We wouldn't
yes.
get into some of the things that they did on their.
Well,
their
you
crusades.
probably have a far better understanding of history than I do. I'm not even going there with you, so I concede. Deadpool won the debate.
They,
Yep, he wins.
Deadpool wins every time.
yeah, I do what I do. I do what I do.
I don't know if you saw actually on TikTok with the firestorm that I ignited there on the Trinity.
Me too, man.
Where you responded to the same like wannabe troll who's been trying to get on at me, where I was like, you made a response and then he responded to one of your videos, and so he's already challenged me to a debate, but I've already got that debate going on like with somebody
You
else.
absolutely bodied him. Like,
so when I saw him respond to your response, I was like, nope, I rescind my offer. I want to see this debate.
yeah.
Well, here, make sure you record this part of the video, okay? I'm a Trinitarian. Whoever it is that's talking this trash with Brad, there's a lot of problems with Trinitarianism. A lot.
Yeah, he's talking
If you got it
trash.
figured
He's
out-
talking trash with both of us.
If
Right.
you got it figured out,
And he's a teenager.
publish
Right.
a paper.
But
Publish
he's
a
like
paper.
huge attitude.
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah, a lot
could
of
make
attitude.
fun of you for all
Deadpool
the things
waylaid
you've been
him.
like, okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I saw parts of it, and I was like, I can't even get in. I got to focus on Brad. Brad's too damn smart. I got to give
That's
him.
kind of been my
100%.
attitude too. I was like, I have this whole other debate to prepare for.
Yeah.
I don't really have time to invest in you.
I'm with you.
His last response to me, I just ignored completely. I'm like, there's only so much time I can dedicate to arguing this topic. Like, I don't care that much.
Fun
You're
fact.
wrong. You're wrong. You're objectively wrong, and
I'm always wrong.
done trying to show you that.
Damn, Dad. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's how.
Bad.
No, fun
That's
fact.
how it be. That's how it be.
Cool.
Brad, the video response I did accepting the challenge got taken off for community guidelines violations. I was
What
like,
did-
what?
What did you say?
Illegal activity. It said illegal activity. I'm like, what the hell?
I knew it, Eddie. I
I've been-
freaking knew it.
I'm
Yo,
like,
so-
is Brad like way high up in TikTok? And now he's getting my stuff taken.
Mhm.
I'm not that high up.
Illegal.
I don't get that, dude.
don't-
I had the same thing. I was live, and then suddenly I wasn't live, and it was like I'm like grilling and drinking a beer and smoking
They
a
are gonna-
cigar. Like,
They're gonna shoot themselves in the foot, man, and lose the whole damn platform. Now I appealed it, and they said, "Okay, sorry, you can have your video back." And I'm like, what the hell was on it to begin with? What,
Right.
Tell me. It wouldn't even let me
Illegal.
see the video, so I didn't even know what the.
Illegal content.
It's
They
what I
told
said.
you.
Illegal.
That beard.
Illegal activity
Oh my
or
gosh, that's even worse.
content, and I'm like, what?
Beard is illegal.
Hmm.
Oh,
what
that's
it
what
is
it
on
is.
TikTok.
Kind of like our beards.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Can't be
that's
friends
exactly what
anymore.
it. I'm so tired of this anti-beardism.
Mm.
I'm so
Yep.
tired of your illegal activity.
Hey, Chico's in here.
I gave it up a long time ago, Nate, but you like enticed me to get back into it. So
I didn't say anything.
You got to be
went on
transparent.
TikTok
Come on,
and you're
Nate.
pushing the
Nate,
illegal content
look,
out
man.
and stuff.
I've got
Yeah,
your
we-
package right here. Keep on. I'm not
I
sending
don't know
it
what
to
you're
you.
talking about.
It's the good stuff, Nate. Straight out of the
All
mama.
right. So I think it's a good spot to start
No
wrapping
idea what
things
he's
up.
talking about. Yeah, let's wrap it up.
Yeah, it's coming unraveled.
Thanks, Stadpool.
I know,
Thanks,
let's
Brad.
cut it off
I
early
learned a lot.
before too much drama ensues.
Yeah, we got to do this again. Seriously, like
Definitely.
just a panel. Let's just pick each other's brains. I don't have much to offer, but I want to pick Brad's brain.
That's not true. You've got so much upstairs that the rest of the hair fell out.
It just ran away from my face.
Brain just pushed the hair out, right?
Yeah, I like that. I'll go with that.
Right.
Nate, you and I are dumb. Apparently, we
Yeah, I'm really stupid.
haven't. Yeah, I
Oh
was.
well, yeah. No.
I like
I was
cars.
actually gonna. Actually, I was just fixing to say Nate is dumb. Forget about him. But Deadpool, I would definitely like to pick your brain on something.
My hair is
Dogs
so
are
thick.
cool.
My barber charges me twice.
I love
Like,
you,
it's-
Nate.
It's ridiculous.
Wow.
Nate's a genius in his own right. Hey, that's a thumbnail making MFer, and he's getting into editing real good. And I'm starting to get jealous because he's like, hasn't. I don't know if he's been doing it as much as I've been playing with it, and he's like,
I
yours
eat
is
the ice
shit.
cream.
Mine is professional.
I eat
Some-
the ice cream.
I'm like, hey Nate, could you here, do something for me?
Oh, I'm not doing anything for you. You have illegal activity
know.
on your TikTok.
I know it's apparently talking to Brad's illegal
Don't
activity.
we all?
Right.
Don't we all?
Right. Can't talk to me.
They're
I'm
like,
so
oh no,
angry
he's
with you, Eddie.
Unitarian, he's Messianic Jew. Hell no.
Every
Right.
time
Community
I
violation.
get a couple steps ahead, Eddie tries to bring me down with this illegal
Yeah.
activity, and I just don't. I don't want to be a part of it.
But I definitely appreciate you doing this, Deadpool. And
Absolutely.
Nate,
Thank
last
you so
minute
much.
man, bro. I'm happy you hopped
That's
on
my
here.
nickname, Last Minute Man.
That's
I'm just
well-
like Last Minute Man.
Last
I
minute
think you're-
filler.
I think you're a funny guy, and you keep it, you keep it happy and funny and shit. So I really appreciate it popping on last minute.
Well, thanks
Yeah,
guys
hop on,
for allowing me to host this on my show. That's really cool. I got to do this. So Nate, where can we find you at first?
Well, so I've been recently working hard on my channel that's in its infancy, but had a big interview yesterday that I feel went pretty well with Mr. Todd Newton, the
Yeah, I
host
saw
with the
that.
most.
That was
He,
badass.
fantastic guest. Even as successful as he's been in the industry, he's even a better person. And so he worked things out with me all week. We worked together on a lot of parts of what we were going to do, and so he even sent me some media for the intro, which is really cool. You wouldn't expect that to be something that someone does, but yeah, it's Crash the Party, the spelled THA, because there's a band out there with like 9,000 followers, and I didn't want people trying to mix me in with them, like a boy band or something. But yeah, Crash the Party. Gonna be putting out tons more content, trying to get this interview series going, probably maybe like once a month, doing some type of interview with somebody. And I'm working on getting those interviews set up with folks that I feel have quote unquote crashed the party and maybe kind of urge themselves into something that maybe most people wouldn't think they kind of push themselves into. And so, like I said, Todd was a great opening guest for that type of series. So if you get a chance, go on back and watch that bad boy. And I appreciate it. And then obviously I work with Tang, and if I'm not fired, I haven't gotten my reconciliation papers yet. I think the cease and desist.
It's not official till you get a copy.
Yeah, the cease and desist I think is still on because they gave that to me on air. So
Yeah.
you might see me on there, you might not. I don't know. It's up to Oz. So I don't want to say too much. I don't want my attorney getting upset with me.
Good stuff. Definitely check out what Nate's got going on.
CYA.
He has a lot of very funny content. Brad, how about you? We got going on between sips of what it is you're drinking.
Beer. It's been a double IPA, a hazy juicy IPA, and a Baltimore Blonde by this point.
That's a heavy beer.
I don't
IPA's
like
garbage.
Do not like
I'm a basic bro when it comes to IPAs, man. Like that's my pumpkin spice latte.
Oh,
Although,
sounds good.
admittedly, to my shame, I also go crazy for pumpkin spice lattes. So that's
I can't do the
perfect.
pumpkin
It's not
spice.
even
I'm
fall.
burned out on it.
I can. I can hang with that.
One thing I do have to bring up is
Amber,
I
pumpkin
appreciate
spice guy.
Eddie. Would you stop interrupting me?
No, my wife's
Rude.
pumpkin
For goodness
spice.
sake.
I'm sorry, Nate. Sorry. Go ahead, bud.
If I believe that I have it correct, I think Brad's wearing my favorite superhero shirt, which would be the Punisher, I believe. Right?
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't even notice that.
Yes.
Yeah. I thought I saw
Yes.
those eyes peeking at me. The Punisher.
yeah.
He was
He's
coming.
He's
calls
my
me
favorite
in.
anti-hero.
Yeah. That's a good word.
He
for
was
it.
coming for the jugular, man. He brought the damn Punisher shirt and everything. It's
Yeah.
like, dang, I didn't have a
Not
chance.
messing around.
It's like my shirt's gonna win the debate.
You're an enigma, Brad. You like pumpkin spice lattes and the Punisher. Like I don't know that
And
combo worked
IPAs.
out very well.
And IPAs and a beard, and I played for a metal band, but I also played praise and worship for a time. And man, I've
And
got a
what's your
story
favorite
to
ice
tell
cream?
you. I do.
What's your favorite ice cream?
Ooh,
Chocolate Matt.
it's
Chocolate
it's not
Matt.
just chocolate.
What the
It
heck?
has to be chocolate with like brownie chunks in it.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go.
Now you're speaking my language. No nuts,
Yes.
though.
No nuts.
Oh.
Hate nuts. Can't do
No
nuts.
nuts.
Yeah, I can't do the
Damn.
nuts. No.
It's a consistency thing. I can't do it.
Yeah,
Right. Well, I just
it's
don't
got to
like
be
nuts in my
chewy and
mouth,
not crunchy.
Exactly. Can't do it. Same reason I can't do bacon bits on a salad.
No, well, I can't anyway. So, but okay. So what we've got on? Obviously, I come from Alternate Media.
Reasons.
So you can look for us on YouTube. We're Alternate Media. Me and my colleague Seamus. I would love to do I've got to introduce him to you, Dadpool.
Dad.
You and him would get along really well, actually.
I believe that.
But so right now I'm putting in research for like a demonology series that we're going to be doing there. So that'll be an interesting one. We've done a couple of episodes on it so far, but they've just been briefly touching on it. So I'll do that's kind of what we're working on now. And then also probably we tossed around the idea of writing a book addressing Christianity's golden calf, which is the Trinity.
I can see a book being written about that for sure.
I
Right,
just
how
love
about you,
that
Eddie?
Everyone's calling you Dad. Everyone's just
Yeah,
calling
Daddy.
you Dad.
He's just
I think
Dadpool.
Dad.
That's just what it is. He's Dadpool.
I get that a lot.
Dad, Eddie smells again.
I call him Dad, and I'm a hell of a lot older than he is.
They are a lot older. A lot older.
As long as none of us say Daddy, it's not
Shots
weird.
fired.
That's okay, Daddy.
Exactly.
As long as nobody calls him Zaddy. I think
Hey,
is-
Nate, stop
Right,
talking,
Ramon.
Daddy.
What does that even mean? So Eddie, where can everyone find you? What do you got?
I've got a 1-800 number.
You get going on?
Eddie Icky.
You can find me at brutefacts.com, brutefacts on YouTube, brutefacts on any major podcast platform. I partner with Pasta Mike at Normalizing Atheism. He's got his own channel on YouTube, all the other social media things. Nate, I'm eventually going to do some stuff with Nate. Right,
I don't
Nate?
think so. If you keep talking the way you've been talking, I don't. Icky.
Oh, here we go.
Eddie Icky. Captain Dadpool. Yeah, you can talk like that. Eddie Icky.
Yeah.
I am on TikTok at Rational Christian, and you would not believe how many times I hear that's an oxymoron. But instead of following me on TikTok, I want you to go follow Brad, because I have learned so much stuff from Brad, just little tidbits and things like that, because he's like the Jewish guru. and he's just so full of knowledge. And seriously, don't judge Brad by this debate,
He
because
crushed you. What are you talking about?
no, I mean, yeah, but he was prepared for a different debate, and
I mean, he
and it's
smashed
because
you, bro.
He was prepared
no,
for the
to
right
his-
debate, or
no, to his credit, everybody always comes with like exactly like he said. It's like gish galloping with scriptures.
Definitely go and look up a Torah debate between Christians. You will see exactly what I mean.
Yeah, he's absolutely correct. And I honestly wish I would have shared a little bit with him before this, because you really can only be prepared for what you're used to, and what you expect. And I've been in the typological prophecy for quite a while, so this was kind of like a natural bridge there for it. And I'm not saying I don't think anybody won. I don't even think that's what our goal was.
Brad,
either one of us.
That's because Brad won.
Well, yeah, I don't care. It's to me.
No,
I
you
think
do.
I just
Well,
want people to, if I can impact enough people to get back to the original meaning of the New Testament, it's a win. I don't care, even if I lost. That doesn't matter to me. But I do, just so it could have been more engaging, because we both kind of prepared for different debates, because I thought Brad was going to go a different way with it too. So that's why I was like, this guy's like really philosophically, he gets all this shit. I got to go like real deep into it. So we both prepared for two different debates. And at the end of the day, Brad is, seriously, I don't mean it as flattery. I really love yours and Seamus's content. I've learned so much from you guys.
are we back?
Appreciate that, man.
It's just
Yeah, we've been
Hold on
here.
Just me?
Eddie, that sounded like someone that lost a debate.
I don't care. It's I would rather people go as much Hebrew as he knows, as much as he knows about the Talmud and the Mishnah and written Torah, oral Torah, bro. Go check him out, man. It's
All the Torahs.
yeah. Well, and don't be so quick to judge people who, find more Jewish relation and meaning in the scripture, because I'm right there with him. I'm like just one step away from being right there with Brad and Seamus. So maybe one day I'll be there.
You just gotta have a couple of more conversations. We'll get you there.
Yeah, that's it. Hey, bro, I'm all about it. As long as I can drink my bourbon, I'm good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's totally kosher.
Okay, yeah.
Matter of fact, even on Sukkot, it's like even commanded, which is like, all those Christians that are anti-alcohol, like, you have a problem.
Yeah, I'm all for the Sabbath on Saturday because football's on Sunday. I've got a big box of kosher flake salt in there that I use for my steaks and ribs. So
The only thing to cook a steak with, yes.
yeah.
Dude, in college, I had to sign a lifestyle agreement saying I would not drink alcohol the entire time.
What?
I did anyway. I snuck it in.
Right.
Into these bad agreements, man.
Freaking
That's
fundamental.
something
College
you have to,
agreement,
like,
your military.
if you got caught, they would
agreements,
kick you out. Yeah.
We call that a cult.
Yes.
You
Fundamentalists, charismatics, and
You would.
dogmatic Catholics, they're all just
that
toss them all
militant
out.
cult he's in right now.
So we're gonna do a little after party in my Discord for anyone who wants to join in. We're just gonna have just hang out and chat for a while. The link, can we post the link in the comments? I guess.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, if you check the link in my beacons and my TikTok, give me just a sec. Give me just a sec here. I'll do it. It's fine. No problem.
on the fly all the time.
On the fly all the time. Is this the right link?
Probably not.
There we go. All right. There's a link to my Discord. Join the chat group, and we'll just shoot some shit for a while, if you're so inclined. All right. So thanks, guys, so much for being a part of this. This is really cool. I'm very very humbled and honored to be able to host this debate on my channel, which is so young. And
Dude, you're having Bart Ehrman on, though, right?
yeah, but my channel is only like 2 months old.
Shut up,
That's like 3 or 4 months old.
bro. I got like 200 subscribers. Shut
Like
up.
3 or 4 months old.
I've been going like 4 months. I got
Listen,
200
you
subscribers.
gotta. There's some things you need to go. You need to go do for TikTok's algorithm team.
Yeah,
Yep.
take my shirt off.
I
and
can't
have,
talk
like,
about
a
those
swimmer's
things
body.
because- But hey, it works. It works. If you're
Hey.
willing to go through with that, it works.
I keep watching you because you take your shirt off. So
It's part of it.
that's all right. Don't
All
judge
right. So
me.
yeah, thanks guys. Look forward to having you on the channel again. Yeah, those in the chat, come join us in the after party.
This Ronin guy said we're fun guys. We're like mushrooms and stuff.
Fun guy, rude,
Sorry, Dad boy. I didn't mean to cut you.
inappropriate. All right. Thanks guys. Y'all have a good night now.
You too.
Bye.
Bro, that was fun, man.